Ethan Cole sat on a broken metal crate inside a ruined outpost. The smell of burnt metal and smoke was still in the air. The last battle of the Galactic War was over, but the silence felt heavy. Ethan looked at his hands. They were rough and dirty, but they had not held a gun for 2 days now. He wondered if he would ever need to hold one again. Around him, other human soldiers were packing up supplies. Some laughed and talked about going home. Others were quiet like Ethan, lost in their own thoughts. The walls of the outpost were cracked and black from plasma fire. Once, this place had belonged to the Joran Empire. Now, it was just another ruin. Ethan thought about his friends. Many had not made it. He remembered Jack, who always told bad jokes. He remembered Olivia, who dreamed of seeing the ocean on Earth. He wondered if their sacrifice meant anything. The humans had won, but the cost was high. A young officer called Ethan's name. Ethan stood up and walked over. The officer was thin and looked too young to wear the uniform. He held a tablet in his hand. "Sergeant Cole," the officer said, "you have been given a surrender claim." Ethan frowned. "A what?" "A Joran asset," the officer explained. "The Empire nobles surrendered some of their personal attendants. If you don't claim it, it goes to the camps." Ethan felt sick. He had heard what happened in the camps. Many Joran prisoners were treated badly or forced to work in mines. "I don't want an asset," Ethan said. "You have to sign here," the officer said. "If you refuse, it goes on record." Ethan sighed and took the tablet. He looked at the name. It said Lyra. No family name. Species, Joran. Age, unknown. Status, personal attendant. He signed it and gave the tablet back. A few minutes later, 2 guards brought a young alien woman to him. She wore a thin silver robe that was torn at the edges. Her skin was pale with a soft blue tint, and her long hair fell like silver threads down her back. Her eyes were large and bright, a clear shade of gray that seemed to glow in the dim light. She kept her head down and her hands folded. "This is Lyra," one guard said. "She's yours now." Ethan felt strange hearing that. "All right," he said. "Thank you." The guards left. Lyra did not move. She did not look at him. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "You don't have to stand like that," he said. She did not respond. Ethan looked around. He found a clean blanket and held it out. "Here, it's cold," he said. Lyra slowly lifted her eyes to him. She took the blanket, but did not speak. She wrapped it around her shoulders and looked at the floor again. Ethan sat back on the crate. He did not know what to say. He had fought Jorans for years. He had shot at them, and they had shot at him. Now he was standing guard over one who looked like she could break in the wind. "Do you understand me?" Ethan asked. Lyra nodded once. "I don't want a servant," Ethan said. "But I didn't want you to end up in a camp either." Lyra said nothing. Her eyes flicked to his face, then back down. The night came fast. The outpost was cold. Ethan gave Lyra some rations and water. She ate little and drank in small sips. She sat near the fire but kept her distance from him. Ethan lay on his side and watched her through half-closed eyes. He wondered what she was thinking. Did she hate him? Was she afraid? He remembered the first time he saw a Joran up close. It was during a raid. The Jorans looked proud and powerful. Then their armor shone under the sun. Now this girl looked small and lost. Ethan closed his eyes. He dreamed of Earth, of green fields and blue sky, of days without guns and alarms. But even in his dreams, he saw fire and smoke. He woke up to find Lyra still sitting awake. She watched the fire with empty eyes. He sat up. "You should sleep," he said. Lyra looked at him. "Where should I sleep?" Her voice was soft. and her words were careful. Ethan pointed to a pile of blankets. There. It's warmer than the floor. Lyra nodded and lay down. She curled up small, like a child hiding from the dark. Ethan lay back down too. He knew tomorrow they would have to leave this place. The army would move out. The outpost would be empty soon. He would have to decide where to go. Maybe he would take Lyra to the refugee camps and find her a place among her people. Maybe he would help her get a ship off this world. He did not know. Yet, all he knew was that the war was over. But nothing felt finished. He closed his eyes again and listened to the wind howling outside the broken walls. Somewhere in the night, he heard Lyra breathe slow and soft. For the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was not alone in the dark. The morning light came slowly through the cracks in the walls. Ethan opened his eyes and saw Lyra still sleeping on the pile of blankets. Her silver hair covered part of her face. She looked calm for the first time since he met her. Ethan sat up and rubbed his eyes. His body was stiff and sleeping on the hard ground. He stood up and walked outside the ruined outpost. Outside, the camp was busy. Soldiers packed. Trucks with old weapons and boxes. Some laughed and made plans to leave for Earth or other colonies. Ethan felt empty listening to them. He did not know where he wanted to go. He only knew he did not want to fight anymore. He found a pot of hot water near a cooking station. He made some dry coffee and held the cup in his cold hands. He watched the sun rise over the broken city. The tall alien towers were cracked and black. Once they touched the clouds. Now they were just stone and dust dot. He thought about Lyra inside the outpost. What would he do with her? She was free now, but the army did not see her that way. They still called her an asset. If he left her alone, someone might take her again or send her to a work camp. He could not let that happen. He heard soft steps. Behind him, he turned and saw Lyra standing there, holding the blanket around her shoulders. Her bare feet touched the cold ground, but she did not complain. "Good morning," Ethan said. Lyra nodded. "Good morning." Ethan pointed to the pot. "Do you want some hot water?" She looked at the pot and then at him. "Yes, please." He poured some into a small metal cup and gave it to her. She held it close, warming her hands. They stood there in silence for a while. Soldiers walked past them, giving Lyra strange looks. Ethan did not like it, but he knew he could not stop them from staring. "Do you know where you want to go?" Ethan asked. Lyra looked at him. "I do not know." Ethan nodded. "Me neither." They finished their drinks. Ethan went back inside to pack his few things. He found an old bag and stuffed it with clothes, a few ration packs, and a small photo of his family back on Earth. He looked at the photo for a long time before putting it deep in the bag. Lyra sat on the floor near the door. She watched him with quiet eyes. When he was done, he stood up and looked at her. "We should leave this place," he said. "It's not safe to stay." She nodded. "Where will we go?" "There's a human outpost 2 days from here," Ethan said. "It's safer. We can rest there and figure out what to do next." Lyra stood up. "I will go with you." Ethan picked up his bag and gave her an old jacket. "Wear this. It will keep you warm." She took the jacket and put it on over her silver robe. It was too big for her, but she did not complain. They left the outpost and walked through the empty streets of the alien city. The wind blew dust around their feet. Broken signs and banners of the Juran Empire still hung from some walls. Lyra looked at them, but said nothing. After an hour of walking, they reached an old road where Ethan found an old army truck. It was half buried in rubble, but he knew how to fix things. He opened the hood and checked the engine. "Can you drive?" Lyra asked softly. Ethan smiled a little. "Yeah, I can fix almost anything." He spent an hour working on the truck while Lyra watched. She sat on a piece of stone, holding her blanket around her shoulders. She did not talk much, but watched every move he made. Finally, the engine coughed to life. Ethan got in and looked at her. "Come on." Lyra climbed in and sat next to him. She held the blanket on her lap and looked at the empty road ahead. They drove for hours through dead land. Old battlefields stretched on both sides. Burned tanks, broken robots, and fallen ships lay silent under the sun. Lyra stared at the wreckage. Ethan glanced at her sometimes. She looked sad, but she did not cry. After a long silence, Lyra spoke. "Why did you fight us?" Ethan gripped the wheel. "Because they told us we had to. Your empire attacked human colonies. We had to defend ourselves." She nodded. "I was born in the palace. I never saw a human before now." Ethan looked at her. "Did they treat you well?" She thought for a moment. "I was not hungry. I had a place to sleep, but I was not free." Ethan said nothing. He focused on the road. The sun started to set. He saw an old gas station and pulled over. They got out and looked around. The place was empty but safe for the night. He made a small fire behind the building. Lyra sat next to him. He gave her some bread and a can of beans. They ate together. She looked at the stars above them. "Are you going back to Earth?" she asked. "Maybe," Ethan said. "I don't know yet." "What is Earth like?" Lyra asked. Ethan smiled a little. "It's green. Blue skies, wide oceans, big forests. I haven't seen it in 10 years. Lyra hugged her knees. "It sounds nice." They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled softly. Ethan looked at her. "You don't have to stay with me. When we get to the outpost, you can choose your own path." Lyra looked at him. "I know. Do you want to stay?" he asked. She thought for a long time before she spoke. "I feel safe with you." Ethan did not know what to say. He poked the fire with a stick. He felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had spent so many years alone with only soldiers by his side. Now he had someone who trusted. Ethan woke up before the sun. He sat up and looked around the small camp. Lyra was still asleep, curled up close to the small fire. The night had been cold, and he gave her his old army blanket. He stood up, stretched his tired arms, and checked his old rifle. It felt strange to still carry it. The war was over, but danger was not. He walked a few steps away and looked at the broken road ahead. They were still days away from the refugee camp. It was the only safe place for people like them. But the road was full of people with no homes, no food, and no hope. Many of them were angry and desperate. Ethan knew that desperate people could be dangerous. Lyra woke up slowly. She opened her silver eyes and looked for Ethan. When she saw him standing guard, she sat up and pulled the blanket closer around her shoulders. She still wore the simple dress given to her by the surrender office. It was too thin for the cold. "Nights. Good morning," Lyra said in her soft voice. Her human words were getting better. "Morning," Ethan said. He gave her a small smile. He sat back down by the fire and handed her a piece of dry bread. She took it with both hands and ate it slowly, like she was afraid to waste even a crumb. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked. She looked at him and nodded. "Yes, I dreamed about the palace, but it is gone now." Ethan poked at the fire with a stick. He did not know what to say. He never knew what to say when she talked about her old life. He only knew that he did not want her to be sad. They packed up their small things and started walking. The sun came up slowly behind broken buildings and burned trees. They did not talk much. They listened for voices or footsteps. Sometimes they saw other travelers in the distance. Ethan always pulled Lyra close when strangers came near. They stopped near an old gas station at noon. Ethan checked the inside. It was empty, but it was safe for a short rest. Lyra sat down on the ground and leaned against the wall. She watched Ethan open a can of beans. "You do not treat me like a servant," she said after a while. Ethan looked at her. He opened the can with his pocket knife and gave her half. "You are not a servant," he said. "But I was given to you," she said. She looked at the food in her hands. "I was a gift." Ethan shook his head. That was wrong. "You are free now." Lyra did not answer. She ate the beans slowly. Ethan could see that she did not believe him yet. Maybe she would need time to believe it after they ate. Ethan checked the map. They had to keep moving. They left the gas station and followed the road again. By evening, they came to an old bridge. A burned truck blocked the middle. Ethan climbed up first to check for danger. He did not see the scavengers until they stepped out from under the bridge. 4 men, thin and dirty, carrying knives and pipes. They looked at Lyra first, then at Ethan. One man with a scar on his cheek smiled. "Nice catch, soldier," the man said. "Why don't you give her to us? We can pay you." Ethan stepped in front of Lyra. "We don't want trouble. Let us pass." The men laughed. The man with the scar took a step closer. "You are out here alone. This is our bridge. You pay to cross." Ethan held his rifle up. It only had a few bullets left. He hoped they did not know that. The men spread out. Lyra grabbed Ethan's sleeve. Her eyes were wide, but she did not scream. Suddenly, Lyra did something Ethan did not expect. She stepped out from behind him. She spoke in her old language, fast and sharp. The men looked confused for a moment. Then she picked up a small rock and threw it at the scarred man's face. The rock hit his eye. He yelled and grabbed his face. Ethan used the moment to lift his rifle and fire one shot in the air. The loud crack made the other men jump back. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her behind the truck. They ran down the side of the bridge, sliding in the dirt. The men shouted behind them, but did not follow. Ethan kept running until they reached a small ditch far from the road. He stopped and turned to Lyra. She was breathing fast, but she was not crying. "You didn't have to do that," Ethan said. "I did," Lyra said. "You protect me. I protect you." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. She was small and thin, but there was fire in her eyes now. She was not the quiet, scared girl he first met. He knew then that she would not just follow him like a servant. She wanted to stand beside him. They sat in the ditch until it was dark. Ethan listened for footsteps, but the scavengers did not come. He gave Lyra a piece of chocolate from his pocket. It was the last piece he had. She took it and held it like it was the most special thing in the world. "Thank you," she said softly. Ethan smiled. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew they would face it together. Ethan and Lyra walked with Kyle and Megan through the broken city. Old buildings stood like broken teeth. The streets were empty, but filled with old burned cars and metal parts. Lyra stayed close to Ethan. She watched shadows move between the walls. She knew these streets. She once walked here as a quiet servant. Now she walked free. Kyle stopped near a broken shop. Inside they found old food packs. Megan gave one to Lyra. Lyra opened it with careful hands and shared half with Ethan. Ethan smiled. He saw she was learning to trust him more. He knew she was strong inside. They planned at night. They sat in a small room with broken windows. Kyle spread an old map on the floor. Lyra pointed at secret doors she remembered. Megan wrote notes in a small book. Ethan watched Lyra talk. She did not look afraid. She looked ready. The next morning they moved again. They crossed old roads and jumped over broken fences. They hid when they saw enemy scouts. Lyra showed them old tunnels under a wall. They moved through the dark together. When they came out, they could see the mountain fortress far away. Smoke rose from chimneys. They heard voices of guards. Ethan put his hand on Lyra's shoulder. She looked at him. She was not the scared girl from before. She was ready to fight beside him. Ethan woke up before the sun came up. He lay still for a few minutes and listened to Lyra's soft breathing. She slept curled up under the old blanket they shared. He wondered if she would still want to help him when she woke up. He hoped she would change her mind, but deep down he knew she would not. He sat up and rubbed his eyes. His back hurt from the hard floor. He stood and walked to the broken window. Outside, the small outpost was already awake. People moved between fires and old trucks. Some were packing bags. Some stood in groups talking in low voices. Lyra opened her eyes and sat up slowly. Her silver hair fell around her face. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders and watched Ethan stand at the window. "Are we leaving today?" she asked. Ethan turned and nodded. "Yes. Kyle and Megan want to leave soon. They want to reach the mountains before dark." Lyra looked at the floor. Her fingers held the blanket tight. "I remember the way," she said. "There are paths only the guards knew. Tunnels under the rocks." Ethan crossed the room and sat next to her. He spoke softly. "You don't have to do this. Lyra, it's not your fight." She looked up at him. "He made me a thing. He made others things too. I want him to pay." Ethan could see in her eyes that her choice was made. He reached out and touched her hand. Her fingers were cold, but she did not pull away. A short time later, they packed what little they had. Ethan checked his old rifle. He only had a few bullets left, but Kyle promised they would have more. He put an extra jacket in his bag for Lyra. The mountains would be cold at night. Kyle and Megan met them near the main gate. Kyle grinned when he saw Ethan. "You ready for one last job, old man?" Ethan gave him a tired smile. "Don't call me old. You look older than me now." Megan handed Ethan a small bag of ammo and a bottle of water. She nodded at Lyra. "You sure about this, girl?" Lyra stood straight and met Megan's eyes. "Yes." They left the outpost just after sunrise. They walked for hours along an old dirt road that twisted through dead fields and broken fences. Birds flew overhead, but no other people were in sight. Ethan walked beside Lyra. He checked on her often, asking if she needed to rest, but she only shook her head. She stayed strong, step after step. By noon, they stopped in a small grove of dead trees. Kyle spread out an old map on the ground. Lyra knelt beside him and pointed at a line, drawn in black ink. "Here," she said. "There is a cave here. It goes under the guard wall. Few people know it." Kyle looked at Ethan. "If this works, we can get in without a fight at the gate." Ethan nodded. "Good. We want to get the warlord before he knows we're coming." They ate dry bread and a few pieces of old fruit Kyle had traded for at the outpost. Then they moved on. The road turned into rough ground, full of rocks and old trenches left from battles long ago. They stepped carefully around old metal parts that rusted in the sun. By evening, they reached the edge of the mountains. The sky turned red and gold as the sun sank behind the peaks. A cold wind blew down from the snow above. Lyra pulled Ethan's jacket tight around her shoulders. Kyle found a small cave to rest in for the night. They built a tiny fire inside and sat close. Megan checked her pistol and counted bullets. Ethan leaned against the stone wall and closed his eyes for a moment. Lyra sat across from him. She watched the fire dance in her silver eyes. "Do you trust them?" she asked, nodding toward Kyle and Megan. Ethan opened his eyes and looked at her. "I trust them. We fought together before." They want this man gone as much as we do. Lyra nodded slowly. She pulled her knees to her chest. I have not been in these mountains for many years, she said softly. I was a child when they brought me here. I did not know why they chose me. I only knew I had no choice. Ethan listened. He did not say anything to stop her. He knew sometimes she needed to speak the old pain out loud. Lyra looked at him. You gave me a choice, she said. I will not forget that. Ethan's throat felt tight. He reached out and touched her shoulder. She leaned into his hand just a little. Then she closed her eyes and rested her head on her arms. The fire burned low. Kyle and Megan spoke in whispers about the plan for the morning. Ethan listened with one ear but kept his eyes on Lyra. He wondered if he was doing the right thing, bringing her here. But she had chosen this. He had to respect that. When the fire turned to ash, they lay down on thin blankets. The cold stone under Ethan's back reminded him of old nights on battlefields far away. But this was different. He was not fighting for orders. He was fighting for something he could understand. In the dark, he heard Lyra's soft voice. Ethan? Yes? He answered. Promise me, she whispered. If I do not make it, promise you will be free. Ethan's heart hurt when he heard her words. He turned toward her shape in the dark. Don't say that. We will make it. Both of us. Lyra did not answer. But after a moment, he heard her breathing slow and calm. She was asleep. Ethan lay awake for a long time, staring at the stone ceiling. He would do whatever it took to keep that promise. He would not let the warlord take anything more from her. Outside the cave, the wind howled through the mountains. The stars came out, cold and clear, watching over them like silent guards. Ethan closed his eyes at last, ready for what tomorrow would bring. The cold mountain air hit Ethan's face when he stepped out of the cave at dawn. The sun was just rising behind the sharp peaks. The sky was clear, but the ground was hard with frost. He looked back and saw Lyra standing at the cave entrance. She held the jacket close around her small frame. Her silver hair moved in the wind. Kyle and Megan were ready too. Kyle checked his rifle, and Megan strapped a small pack to her back. They all looked tired but ready. There was no turning back now. Lyra led them up a narrow path that twisted through sharp rocks and old trees with dry branches. She moved carefully, stopping sometimes to look ahead. Ethan stayed close behind her. He watched her every step, ready to help if she slipped. They climbed for hours. Sometimes they heard faraway voices echo through the rocks. Kyle pointed to old watchtowers hidden in the cliffs. He has eyes everywhere, Kyle whispered. Lyra nodded. Yes, but this way is hidden. Only the palace guards used it to escape when they needed to. By noon, they reached the mouth of a cave, hidden behind thick bushes and sharp rocks. Lyra knelt down and pushed aside a stone. Under it was a small hole in the ground. She looked up at Ethan. It goes under the wall, she said, but it is dark inside. No lights, no sound. You must trust me. Ethan touched her shoulder. We trust you. Kyle climbed down first. Megan followed him. Ethan went next, holding Lyra's hand so she would not slip on the rough stones. Inside, the cave was damp and cold. It smelled of old earth and mold. They moved slowly through the dark, only a small flashlight in Kyle's hand showing the way. They crawled on hands and knees in some places. Lyra pointed left and right at turns. Sometimes she stopped to listen for sounds above them. They heard footsteps, once heavy boots on metal. The soldiers above did not know they were there. After what felt like forever, the tunnel opened into a small chamber. The air smelled cleaner here. A broken wooden door lay on the ground. Lyra stepped forward and pushed aside the pieces. Beyond, The door was a narrow hallway made of metal and stone. "This was the old guardhouse," Lyra whispered. "The main hall is close." They moved down the hallway. Ethan felt his heart beat faster. He gripped his old rifle tighter. His boots made soft echoes on the stone floor. He looked at Lyra. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Kyle stopped them at a corner. He peeked around. 2 guards in old Joran armor stood near a heavy metal door. They looked bored. They did not know death was so close. Megan tapped Ethan's arm. She held up 2 fingers and pointed at herself and Kyle. Ethan nodded. Kyle and Megan moved fast and silent. 2 short pops from Kyle's silenced pistol, and the guards dropped. Ethan and Lyra hurried forward. The metal door was locked with an old code box. Lyra knelt down and pressed her small fingers on the keys. Her lips moved as she whispered numbers from her memory. There was a soft click. The door opened a little. Inside was a long hall filled with crates and old weapons. A few men in Joran armor sat near a fire. Ethan lifted his rifle and signaled. "Kyle." They moved in. Shots cracked through the hall. The men fell before they could shout for help. Lyra ran to a small side door. She pointed. "This way. His chamber is here." They followed her through the door and up narrow steps. Ethan felt sweat on his neck, though the air was cold. The steps opened into a large room with stone walls covered in old banners. In the middle of the room stood the warlord. He wore dark armor with a red sash. His face was old, but his eyes were hard and cold. He looked at Ethan, then at Lyra. He laughed. "The little pet girl brings humans into my house?" He said in the old Joran tongue. Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was steady. "I am no one's pet, not anymore." The warlord raised a small gun at Lyra, but Ethan fired first. The bullet hit the warlord's arm. He dropped the gun and screamed. Kyle and Megan ran to fight 2 other guards that ran in through another door. Ethan moved toward the warlord. The man grabbed a long knife and swung at Ethan's face. Ethan blocked it with his rifle. The blade cut his arm, but he pushed the old man back. Lyra grabbed a broken metal rod from the floor. She swung it hard and hit the warlord's knee. He fell with a shout of pain. Ethan kicked the knife away and aimed his rifle at the warlord's head. "Do it," the warlord hissed. "You are just a killer, same as me." Ethan looked at Lyra.